Hey guys, in this position, world champion Mikhail Tal as white played something surprising and he won the game just one move later. Of course we're going to analyze it very soon, but first let's see how they got here because it's really interesting. Keep watching. So Tal is playing as white and Suetin is playing as black. And the game was e4, c5, Sicilian, knight f3, e6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, and then a6. They are playing a canned variation in Sicilian defense. The game continues bishop d3, knight goes to e7, and knight c3 and knight b to c6. Here, this is an interesting moment because Tal is going to play the move knight b3, which seems to be a little surprising maybe or something, but it's actually very interesting. The idea is that he's avoiding trades. Notice black has some problems here with development. His pieces are blocking each other, and in general that's like a principle for the middle game. If you have more space, you don't trade, and that's what he's doing. He's avoiding trades because if we capture here on c6, for example, black can recapture with the knight and they can continue developing pieces. That's not what we want. So knight b3 is the move Tal plays, and the game continues knight g6. White castled and b5. Then bishop goes to e3, very natural development for white pieces, and black is playing here d6. Then f4, typical idea in these lines, and then bishop e7. And this is the moment where Tal is going to activate the queen. He puts the queen on h5. The queen is active, is controlling a lot of things, is on the same line as the king, and also the queen is not too exposed because black cannot really threaten our queen in the next moves. Well, bishop f6 and then rook a d1. Now the rook is on the same line as black queen. There might be some tactics. For example, an idea here is to play e5 with some ideas with the capture on g6. Imagine black plays any move. I'm going to say something like rook b8. We could be playing here e5. And the idea is that if black takes, we can play this. Discovered getting the queen. That's why Suetin is going to move the queen out of the file, but first he traded here on c3 and then queen goes to c7. Tal plays here rook d2, which is actually a very useful move because now he could be doubling rooks on f or doubling rooks on d, depending on what happens in the next moves. Black plays here knight c to e7, and now white knight goes to d4, which is also very well. Very often in Sicilian there are ideas with sacrifices here on b5 with the bishop and then recapturing with the knight to get the pawn later on d6. For example, just to show you the idea, if black plays any move, I'm just saying one move here, h6, white could be playing bishop takes pawn, knight takes pawn, and then taking the pawn on d6. So white is getting like 3 pawns for the piece down, which is already a good compensation, but also they continue with a lot of initiative. They open the line. The king won't be able to castle, and then they can continue with a lot of threats and a strong attack. For example, by playing f5, many ideas here on f7 with knight and queen. So the attack could be really dangerous in that position. So that's why here Suetin is going to play bishop d7 to make sure there are no tactics over b5. And this is the right moment here, and Tal is going to play f5. But I want to highlight something. Notice how he didn't rush with the advance over f or e5. These pawns here like these are usually very strong. They control many squares in the center. So in general, when we advance, we need to make sure we're actually getting something. Notice when we move the pawn, we're giving black a very nice square here on e5 for the knight. So again, we need to make sure when we advance the pawn, we are actually getting something. This time there are many good ideas with the knight going to e6, and the queen and the king, they are both on the same line. And also, of course, we are opening the file for the rook. Black trades on f5, e takes f5, the knight goes to e5 as we were saying. But now this move, knight e6, there is a fork, so black is more or less forced to capture the knight on e6. F takes e6, there is a lot of pressure here, the pawn cannot capture because of the pin, and also we opened the f file. So black's playing here g6. And this is the position we had at the beginning of the video. Here Tal is playing something amazing, a little surprising, and it is this move queen takes e5. And well, what happened here? What is this master doing in this position? Notice white pieces are all of them in the first, second or third rank. So what happened? Does this make sense? Well, it actually makes a lot of sense. We're going to understand the move now. The idea is that after black takes the queen, which seems to be the only option since they just lost a piece, Tal can play e takes f7. That's what happened in the game. At this point, Suetin is going to resign. Let's analyze the lines. For example, black has like three options: king f8, king d8, or king d7. King f8 is going to be mate in 1. We can just play bishop h6, that's mate. And the other line is king d8 or king d7. We are going to analyze it, but let's take a look. The king is going to be on the same line as the rook, so that will be discovered. Also, the pawn is promoting getting the rook in some lines, so this is going to be getting many pieces for the queen down. For example, king d8, we can just promote here on f8. The rook takes on f8, rook takes, and then we can capture the rook here, but we can also give a check in between. This is probably a little better, because then we can give another check, forcing black to block. They don't have any other move, and then when we capture, we are getting the rook behind anyway. So yeah, we can capture the rook. These are too many pieces for a queen, like 2 rooks and 2 bishops for a queen. Decisive advantage for white here. The other line after e takes f7 is just going to d7, but then we can do the same idea. The king is there, so we can give the double check, forcing the king to go to c6, and then the other check here on e4. The king cannot move, they have to block, we capture, the king can go, for example, to d7, and then we capture again with check. So these are too many pieces already. It is a rook and 2 bishops for a queen, which is decisive advantage for white, but also they are going to get something else with the promotion of the pawn. So 3 very instructive moments in this game. In the opening, he's going to play knight b3 in this position to avoid trades. The rule is, if you have more space, avoid trades, since your opponent will have to manage everything in short space. Then later, at some point, he played in this position the move f5. He found the right moment where he was creating more damage, and he was actually opening lines and creating many problems. And finally, some moves after this, he played the sacrifice of the queen here on e5, and this is just going to be winning. This is a decisive combination winning the game. If you have any question, let me know in the comments. I will be happy to interact over there. Thank you, like, subscribe. See you on the next.